So recently I finished possibly the best fantasy series ever written. Not only was it a meaningful story about the struggles we all feel between good and evil, and about how the best of intentions can sometimes end up leading to a dark path, it also has some of the best character work I've ever seen, and characters represent the best and the worst of us all. That combined with world building surpassed by no one else, and one of the best soundtracks ever leads me to be almost sad it's over. All of this adapted for some writer's books. A truly transcendent experience that leads me to say one thing to all those who took this path with me. I bid you all a very fond farewell. Well, anyway, after finishing Return of the King, I had to play through this POS. Yeah, the footage was all unrelated. I did not care for the Witcher games at all. None of them. This puts me at odds with 90% of the internet when I say I don't like number 3 because that's the one that gets the most praise. This is mostly an exercise to break the pluralistic ignorance that surrounds this game. Pluralistic ignorance is the pretentious way of saying the Emperor has no clothes. By saying that, I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but I am letting everyone who feels the same way I do know that they're not alone. There's a variety of reasons I don't care for this game, though, starting with the god-awful combat. This covers any system in which you interact with the world. The combat is just one of those systems. But yeah, let's start with the combat. It's difficult to describe the combat as anything other than floaty. Attacks don't feel like they have much weight, and there's no reason to use the differing attack styles. The light attack does almost as much damage as the heavy attack and is much less likely to be interrupted. Meaning that if you want to upgrade an attack style, there's very little reason to pick heavy attack over light attack. It's fine to have an optimal build, but there's a whole attack type not even being used. Look at the Arkham combat system. Yes, it's a little overdone right now, but it's being copied because there's no attack type in those games that doesn't have a use. Basic attacks are used to take out moves. Stun attack combos take on guys with body armor. Stun jumps take out guys with shield. You get it. There's an attack for every type of enemy. In The Witcher, you use light attack, Quinn, and the short dodge. Not that the combat is horrendous, but it's the worst kind of combat in my estimation. Difficult enough to where you have to pay attention, but too easy to be a real challenge. This wouldn't be a huge issue if the movement wasn't so bad. It's difficult to explain why I don't like the movement in this game, as that's mostly something that you have to feel out. I think I'll just show part of a review that made me totally uninterested in getting the game Red Dead Redemption 2.
Either way, you will always be role-playing as someone who has lost all sensation in their arms and legs and can't even walk up to a dog without accidentally kicking it in the head, because Rockstar's engine still prioritizes realistic physics and momentum above our being able to effectively move around.
If there's one thing I hate, it's that. The Witcher 3 also has this same you keep moving a few nanoseconds after you stop hitting W thing. I played the lion's share of this game just after playing the game Sunset Overdrive. This was a mistake for a variety of reasons, as these two games couldn't be farther apart in design philosophy. One adds a sense of whimsy to a genre known for its dour tone, and the other adds a dour tone to a genre known for a sense of whimsy. One spends hours telling you its exhaustive story, the other stops halfway through the story to say who cares. But the biggest difference is one concerns itself with feeling good to move around, and the other with looking good. Now, Insomniac is a company that cut its teeth on platformers, so it's no wonder Sunset Overdrive feels so much better to play. Although some of this is clearly just priority. I can't tell you that you're wrong if you care more about how it looks than how it feels. I will ask that we quit pretending that this is a smooth game, though, as I would be remiss to not mention that thing. The horse controls like it's blind and drunk in this game. I've heard excuses for this thing that can be summed up as, you're not controlling a horse, you're controlling someone on a horse. Yeah, believe it or not, I actually do know how to ride a horse, and I can tell you this is not how a horse controls. One thing that people often forget about horses, in games in particular, is that they're intelligent. They know what they're doing, they don't need people to steer them. This means they're really not that bad to control. Something that's not translated well into this game because the horse always feels like it's combating you. Regardless, I didn't use the thing after the first few hours in this game and mostly just walked. Look, I grew up playing platformers, so movement is super important to me. The Witcher 3 has bad movement. But the movement wouldn't be as bad if you were actually moving through a world that was interesting. So you come to this new area, right? You go to the notice board and you receive all these little question marks on your map. Then you can go to the monster dens or bandit hideouts or whatever and kill everything. If you're super lucky, you get to follow a fart cloud around too. Why you would ever want to do this is beyond me. A good open world has a variety of things to do. The Witcher 3 has combat and following bloody animal droppings. Beyond that, your rewards for doing these things is uninteresting loot. Even if you like the game, can you ever say you were excited to find some more boring gear? No, you created most of your decent gear, and looting items in this game feels like more of a chore than anything else. I need to sell these to get gold, to buy some herbs so I can make a new weapon oil. This just means there's really no reason to actually explore. What's there to find? Not much. What's there to do? Very little. Still, discount Skyrim is the most fun I had playing this game. This compounds with the problem of the mini-map. As pretty as the game may be, you're mostly going to be watching the mini-map. There's very little reason not to, as it shows nearby enemies and is the only way to quickly access information about where you need to go. This is one of those improvements in gaming that I'm glad of. Less and less mini-maps. I bemoaned the compass from Skyrim, but I'll give it this. I'm mostly watching the road with this thing.
What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
This is normally the part of the video where I say something to the effect of, but this doesn't matter, yada yada, characters, yada yada, story. I don't like the writing though.
Fool this man!
It's difficult to like a game where in the first 15 minutes you get this line.
Ever tell you about this sorcerer I knew? Couldn't stop talking about how useful they are as creatures.
Because you can brew potions from their blood?
No, because by eating rotting corpses, they prevent epidemics.
Did he know they eat the living as well?
No, really upset him too. His theory collapsed.
That's a nirvana fallacy. A nirvana fallacy is when you imagine the perfect version of an argument, in this case that the necro-whatevers eat only the dead, then juxtapose it with reality. In this case that they also eat people. As long as the necrophages stop more disease than they kill people, that unnamed scholar is correct about them being useful for disease control. Why does this matter? Well, that one interaction is this game's writing in a nutshell. Using any sort of logical inconsistency to just be a bummer. There's this one quest where you find a guy tied up and left for dead. You can choose to untie him, but if you do, it turns out he's a bandit and attacks and may even kill, I honestly can't remember, some refugees. The obvious intention here is to get you to wonder about your actions and feel guilty if you did let the guy go. This is another control fallacy. You're not responsible for the actions of other people. Let's say you're not a virtue ethicist. Let's say you're a consequentialist. Then what you did was evil and you're a bad person. But still, it's out of your control, and the only thing you can do is try and do better in the future. It's ethics for people who never thought about ethics. This combines with the bizarre lack of humanity present in many of the characters. I think I can highlight what I mean in this part of the trailer.
By order of the Emperor of Nilfgaard, for the murder of the wounded, looting, cannibalism, you are hereby sentenced to death by hanging. Or torment. What are you doing?
Killing monsters.
I'm inclined to give Geralt the benefit of the doubt and assume that lady is completely innocent. That said, the soldiers doing the hanging there probably think she was guilty. They were, in your words, killing monsters. I don't know if this hypocrisy is intentional. This is something that's difficult to ascertain through the writing. The various moments throughout the game make me think it's not. First, there's that line that's repeated ad nauseum. One sword is for killing humans, and the other for killing non-humans. Both are for killing monsters. Something like that.
It's a pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance.
Pity? It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can Do not be too eager to deal out death and judgment.
I don't have much to add to that. Look, I get the point. It's a world where humans can be more monstrous than the actual beasts of the forest. The game loves to do this kind of ironic twist in the end of its quest, which is fitting as irony is increasingly revealing itself to be hollow, showing problems but failing to offer any solutions. I personally find the idea that people always think they're doing the right thing, but are sometimes tragically misguided as being more tragic and more sad and more real. This idea that some people are just monsters is just, it's a pipe dream. People are trying their best. They often suck. The subversion of fantasy tropes is actually something that people love about this game, which is surprising to me as the main character is a not quite human monster hunter who is hated and feared by the people he protects. Now, was I describing Geralt or Aragorn there? This isn't a problem, it's just a weird point of praise the series gets when it's not all that unique. Not a bad thing. I do find plenty of problems of how the world is built, however. For one, they waste their curse words on real curse words. A well-built fantasy world has plenty of things that they would swear by or curse by, but The Witcher seems content to just trot out the old standbys. This isn't a problem, it's just not excellence. Though I guess this is a common thing in the dark and gritty sphere of fantasy. Well, let's curse a lot. Why? My biggest issue with the world building is the exposition. The other day, me and my brother were talking about this game, and the question came up, why do humans hate elves? I've played this game for 30 hours, and I still don't know. I'm sure there's an actual explanation, it's just the exposition isn't weaved into the narrative at all. You might say it's unfair to ask this question, seeing as how it's the third game in the series, but I figured out the answer to this question 2 hours into Dragon Age Inquisition, so I don't think I'm asking the world here. There are other problems in the world building. They're minor things that I don't want to get into. In summary, I find the gameplay to be complex, but uninteresting. The world to be large and beautiful, but there's nothing worth seeing. The story ethically unchallenging and morally dubious. Honestly, pulling that last one off is kind of impressive. And the world building to be large, but largely unimpressive. It's big, sure, but it's not very deep. And you know what? All of this is fine. To make something that someone truly loves, you'll need to make something that some people truly hate. It's just a bummer that I'm in the second group here. If you like the game, fine. My only hope is that someone sees this, knows that it's not just them thinking this, and can make my point better than me. Because Lord knows I didn't make it well enough here. Like that'll be hard. Some of the music was alright though.